Today we're going to talk about something that's very near and dear to me, barbecue ribs. Specifically, we're going to talk about the difference between barbecue baby back ribs and barbecue spare or St. Louis ribs. Now, before the comments come, there's a difference between spare ribs and St. Louis ribs. They're the same rib. A St. Louis cut is just cut the rib tip off the top of the spare rib. Just in case I say it wrong later today, we will be cooking St. Louis cut spare ribs today. But 2 weeks ago, I cooked barbecue baby back ribs for the first time in a barbecue contest. This matters to me because the whole reason I started cooking barbecue was because I loved barbecue baby back ribs. And the lack of a barbecue restaurant in my town forced me to figure out how to cook them. Fast forward years later, I primarily cook St. Louis cut spare ribs. What do I actually prefer between a baby back and a St. Louis cut? And then for you guys, let's talk about what the differences are between a baby back and a St. Louis, and I'll tell you at the end which one I prefer these days. So a couple of things right off the bat from trimming these. First of all, these are compart ribs. They are the cream of the crop, in my opinion, as far as intermuscular marbling and taste, tenderness, all that. There's a lot that goes into that, but trust me, if you haven't tried comparts, they're incredible. As for the ribs themselves, right off the bat, the biggest thing you'll notice is the amount of intermuscular marbling in the meat in a spare rib. That's because of just where it's located on the pig. This is right behind the belly or the bacon, which we all know bacon is extremely fatty, whereas the baby backs are up on top of the hog. So this section right here, that is actually pork loin. The pork loin is an extremely lean cut of meat. When you get into those loins, they're not nearly as fatty of a cut as other pieces on the animal. So if you look down in the ribs that start to go, and actually these ribs when they're on the animal fit together like this. So we've got the spine of the pig, the side of the pig, and then down here is the belly of the pig. So you can kind of naturally see the progression from leanest to fattiest. And right here is where you'd pull that bacon from. That being said, you can definitely cook both of these ribs where they are absolutely tender and moist and delicious. Sometimes it's going to come down to, do the people you're feeding mind a little bit of fat if you don't get it all the way rendered? Or some people don't even like the feel of rendered fat. So maybe in that case, the spare rib wouldn't be for you. In that case, maybe something a little bit more meatier, you're definitely in the baby back. If they don't mind the fat and the rendered fat, you could definitely get this rib just as tender with so much more moisture, just because of all this fat content in here. The other thing, if you're new to this, you may like what you saw me do with this baby back. From compart, these things come with the membrane off the back. All I did was knock off a tiny rib on this part and a piece of a rib on this part, and these were pretty much good to go. Whereas these spare ribs, they look more uniform because I had to put a little bit more work into making sure they were uniform. So if you want a quicker, no fuss, no muss cook, maybe the baby back in prep is for you. For now though, those are the main differences I wanted to cover, just in the preparation, the differences between the ribs, how they lay on the animal, as you can see here. Now we're just gonna get these things rubbed up and in some smoke. So as always with a rib cook, we're gonna go ahead and start on the back. We're gonna do something a little different today. I know you guys have seen me use Dirty Bird and Honey Killer Bee about 1,000,000 times on this channel. So today we're gonna do something else that I like to do, and something a little bit new as well. So we're gonna start with a savory layer, and this is Cosmos Q Texas Beef. Now, this one came out before the SPG ever did, and it's a real granular, sort of salt, pepper, garlic, a little bit of herb in there. It just smells fantastic. I put this on everything. This is a great seasonal. And I love how powdery it is too. It really gets to work on that protein immediately. Now this is new. This is Cosmo's new cow cover course. I've done cow cover ribs before. Cosmo loves them. They're not exactly for me. I'm very much a sweet tooth, but let me tell you something. This course, the coarseness of the granules literally changes the taste of the rub. There's also a hot version. That hot version really has some smoke to it. Like, it'll light you up. But this one, it also has heat to it. I don't know what it is. It's got a little bit more sweet than the regular cow cover, or I can pick up a little bit more sweet in it. It's probably due to the size I'm guessing of those turbinado sugar granules, if I was guessing. It's very large sugar granules. And it just has a great flavor. I absolutely love this stuff. I've actually been running it on competition brisket and it's been doing just fine. We're gonna give this a few to set in, and you know the drill, we're gonna flip it over. Onto the front side, same thing. Cosmo's Texas beef. I'm sure he kicks himself for naming it that because it goes on absolutely everything, not just beef, but like I said, you can see how powdery that is. It's just a great seasonal. Back to this coarse cow cover. This is the first time I'm running this on ribs, but I've got high hopes for it. All right, there they are. We'll give them a few minutes to set in, and then we'll be on the smoker. Hour and a half, and this bark looks incredible. So now it's time to wrap this. These aren't gonna get a really long wrap because we've been cooking hot and fast, but I do wanna give them some time to help break down any extra fat. So what we've got is a full-size steam pan to help us collect stuff. Basically, all we're gonna do is pick these up, straighten them meat side up, 4 pads of butter. It's eventually gonna melt down, but we'll start it up here. A little extra shake with the Cosmos Q cow cover course. A little bit of apple juice just in the bottom to help it braise. And for some sweet, we're gonna go over the top with just a little bit of hot honey. We'll wrap it up. Back on it goes. Our St. Louis cuts, same deal. Remainder of our butter pats, some cow cover hot, and then some hot honey. We'll come back and I'll show you how to figure out if they're tender or not. So we're about 45 minutes in the wrap, and now it's time for me to check these. Now, you can check ribs a bunch of different ways. You can use temp probes, and I do, but also I like to just know what they feel like when I squeeze them, when I pick them up. I can tell you those are probably done. Now, spares sometimes can take a little bit longer because we've got more fat to render. Yeah, those are done as well. They feel right. So we're gonna get them off. We're gonna get them rested for a little bit. Then we're gonna sauce them up. All right, we've had enough time to basically let the steam off of them, cool them down enough. We'll get them on here. So today what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit these with some Cosmos Q OpX 1. I debated on whether to even sauce these, but come on. As long as it's the same, we can still compare our baby backs to our spares. Just a nice thin glaze. Final product looks pretty darn good. Oh, they feel amazing. They feel like jelly. Baby backs are usually a little bit more firm, but these feel great too, so let's get them in there and get a taste. All right, normally I don't do this, but these are so pretty, we're gonna try to cut from the top. So let me try to grab a rib from each rack, and then we'll compare them. both of these look particularly juicy. Part of that's from the fact that they're Compart Duroc, but let's give them a taste. Let's see what the differences are. All right, we are back in the garage today because it is hot outside, but we're gonna start first with our St. Louis cut spare rib. These are my, let's see if I can get that, maybe. There we go. These are what I cook all the time now because of competition, so this is borderline my control, but let's give this a shot. When I'm cooking these at home, I can just, that's not what they want in competition. I can tell you that right now, but that's what I want here. It is basically butter on the bone. It is so good. But let's give these baby backs a try. All right, got my baby back. These are what got me into cooking barbecue in the first place. It's a good baby back rib. So let's see if it meets what my nostalgia thinks it should be. It's exactly what I used to love to do. I don't think I can get it in focus, but that bone is clean. It is turning whiter by the second. You can't ask for better than that. I take that back. You probably can. I just don't know that I can deliver better than that. These ribs have a really savory flavor today too, by the way. I'm known for making sweet tooth barbecue, but this, with that cow cover, I'm telling you, you saw these ribs. They were beautiful. Get you some of that cow cover course and try it on some ribs. All right, so here are my conclusions. Baby backs, kind of less to mess with the trim. They're pretty much good to go. If I'm Compart, the membrane's already pulled off the back. If you don't, pull the membrane, clean up any hanglies or danglies, you're good to go. Throw it on the grill. Spares, if you want to get them picture perfect, they're gonna take a little bit more to trim up. Also, weird fact, for me at least, the membranes come off easier on baby backs. I don't have to fight them as hard as I do for spares. Cook-wise, they're about the same. Baby backs might cook a little bit faster because they don't have as much intermuscular fat content that we showed you at the very beginning. Now, the big difference to me, that intermuscular fat, when you bite into a piece of a St. Louis cut spare rib or a spare rib in general, it's going to have almost a meat jello texture if you've done it right, which I love. Think fatty brisket. Think the fattiest brisket point. That's what that's gonna taste like if you do it right. That baby back texture is gonna be more kind of steaky, less fat mixed in, still nice and tender, delicious and tender, but not as much fat in between to sort of just explode when you bite into it. And some people are into that, and I get that. What I used to love to do when I would buy half a rack of baby backs before I cooked barbecue was I'd pull the bones out with a fork. I wanted them that tender, and then dunk them in barbecue sauce, and that's okay. I got into barbecue because of baby backs, but these days, because of what I know and what I can now do, I prefer the spares for the fat content. Find which one works for you, perfect the cook, and enjoy them. If you want to see a weird baby back though, meet me over here. Let's talk about potato chips.